Gwen Stefani shutting down rumors she and Blake Shelton are getting divorced.
I was like, what? That's crazy.
When Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton first went public with their romance, fans around the world couldn't believe it. The pop princess from California and the country, superstar from Oklahoma, two people from completely different worlds, had found love in the most unexpected place, the set of The Voice. Their chemistry was instant, their connection genuine, and for years, they stood as one of music's most beloved power couples. From heartfelt duets to red carpet moments filled with laughter, Gwen and Blake made love look effortless. They defied critics who called them an odd match, proving that opposites really could attract. But as the years passed, the fairy tale began to fade. Rumors of tension, emotional distance, and conflicting priorities started to swirl, and soon, what once looked like the perfect union began to show cracks. Now, insiders close to the couple have revealed shocking new details that might finally explain why Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton's relationship came to an end. And it's not what anyone expected. Was it jealousy? Fame? Distance? Or did deeper emotional wounds finally catch up with them? This is the real reason behind the heartbreaking split of Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton, a story of love, trust, and the painful truth about what really happens when two worlds collide under the spotlight. When Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton first crossed paths on The Voice in 2014, no one could have predicted the whirlwind romance that would follow. Gwen, the pop rock icon known for her bold fashion and California girl energy, was still reeling from her painful split with Gavin Rossdale after 13 years of marriage. Meanwhile, Blake, the country music star with a heartland drawl, was coping with the aftermath of his high-profile divorce from fellow country singer Miranda Lambert. Both were wounded, both were vulnerable, and both were looking for something real. On paper, they couldn't have been more different. Gwen came from the glitzy world of pop and fashion, while Blake embodied the laid-back Southern charm of Nashville. But it was those differences that drew them together. Behind the scenes of The Voice, a quiet friendship formed, one built on late-night talks, shared pain, and mutual understanding. As the cameras rolled, their chemistry became impossible to ignore. Viewers noticed the glances, the laughter, the genuine care they had for each other. By late 2015, their friendship had turned into something deeper. When they finally went public with their relationship, fans were stunned, yet oddly enchanted. They were proof that love could bloom even after heartbreak. Blake once described Gwen as a savior, admitting that her support helped him through one of the darkest periods of his life. Gwen echoed those feelings, saying that Blake had brought her back to life after the emotional collapse of her marriage. For the next several years, they were inseparable. They made red carpet appearances hand in hand, released heartfelt duets like Nobody But You and Happy Anywhere, and often gushed about each other in interviews. To the public, they were a refreshing reminder that love could heal even the deepest wounds. Fans adored how authentic their relationship seemed. No scandals, no drama, just two stars who looked genuinely happy together. But as their romance grew, so did the spotlight. Every move they made was dissected by tabloids, and every minor disagreement became headline news. Yet they handled it gracefully, leaning on humor and affection to silence critics. They weren't just dating, they were building a brand, one rooted in their contrasting yet complementary images. When they finally tied the knot in 2021 at Blake's Oklahoma ranch in an intimate ceremony, it felt like the perfect ending to their love story. The setting was simple, rustic, and deeply personal, exactly the kind of wedding both had dreamed of after years of fame and chaos. For a moment, it truly seemed like Gwen and Blake had found lasting happiness, but behind the smiles, subtle differences in lifestyle and long-term goals began to emerge. Gwen's life was still deeply connected to Los Angeles. Her children, her fashion line, and her music world were all centered there. Blake, on the other hand, had settled into a quieter life on his ranch, far removed from Hollywood's buzz. Their love had bridged those worlds for a while, but distance and diverging priorities slowly began to take their toll. Still, at the time, No one suspected how fragile their relationship had become. To fans, they were the golden couple of country pop, two people who had beaten the odds. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, and the fairy tale everyone admired was quietly beginning to unravel. At first glance, Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton looked like the definition of true love. They met on The Voice in 2014, both healing from painful divorces, and their connection seemed effortless, two broken hearts finding comfort in each other's laughter. The world fell in love with their story, a California pop queen and an Oklahoma country boy beating the odds. But behind the picture-perfect smiles, reality began to show its cracks. When Blake decided to leave The Voice in 2023, it was supposed to be a new beginning, a chance to rest and focus on their life together. Yet it quickly became clear that they wanted very different things. Blake craved peace and simplicity, spending his days at his Oklahoma ranch surrounded by nature, guitars, and family. Gwen, however, thrived on creativity and momentum. Between her fashion label, music projects, and raising her 3 sons in Los Angeles, she couldn't slow down. The distance, both emotional and physical, began to grow. While Blake preferred the quiet life far from Hollywood, Gwen was constantly flying back and forth for work. Their schedules no longer aligned, and even though they tried to make time for each other, the separation weighed heavily on their relationship. According to close friends, they started living in 2 completely different worlds. Then came the creative tension. Their musical chemistry, once magnetic, started to falter. Gwen wanted to experiment, infusing her style with modern pop and electronic elements, while Blake was happiest sticking to traditional country roots. What used to be playful creative banter started turning into disagreements. Some even said that Gwen felt creatively restricted, while Blake believed she was losing sight of who she really was. Adding to their growing problems was the pressure from the public eye. The media loved them, maybe a little too much. Every ringless photo of Gwen or solo event attended by Blake became breaking news. Tabloids speculated endlessly about their marriage, trouble in paradise, separate lives, fighting over careers. And while they laughed it off in interviews, the constant attention was exhausting. It magnified every small argument, every quiet day apart, and every decision they made. There were whispers, too, that Blake's desire to stay out of Hollywood clashed with Gwen's love for the spotlight. Blake had always been open about hating fame, the cameras, the gossip, the drama. Gwen, on the other hand, built her life in it. To her, performing and creating weren't just a job. They were her identity. As one source put it, Gwen felt like she was still growing, while Blake felt like he had already found his peace. Then came the emotional strain. Gwen, known for her sensitivity and passion, reportedly struggled to connect with Blake's laid-back attitude. What she saw as emotional distance, he saw as calmness. Over time, they started misunderstanding each other more often than they connected. She needed reassurance, said an insider, but Blake didn't always know how to give it. By late 2024, those who knew them best noticed something different. Their once constant public displays of affection became rare. Interviews felt scripted. Their body language seemed colder. Yet they tried to hold on, not just for love, but because neither wanted to face another public heartbreak. But love isn't always enough when 2 people want completely different lives. What started as an escape from pain had quietly become a source of it. The once fairy tale romance was beginning to unravel, not through betrayal or scandal, but through silence, distance, and change. As time went on, the public began to sense what Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton were trying so hard to hide. Something wasn't right. It started subtly. Fewer joint appearances, less social media interaction, and an unusual silence from both. Fans who once saw them post love-filled selfies and perform duets now noticed that their online affection had all but disappeared. But behind the scenes, tension had reached its peak. The first wave of rumors hit when sources claimed Gwen had moved out of their shared Los Angeles home temporarily to focus on creative projects. While both denied any split, the media storm only intensified. Every word, every outfit, every solo appearance was dissected. Gwen's fans flooded her Instagram with questions. Where's Blake? Are you okay? But she never addressed them directly. Meanwhile, Blake retreated to his Oklahoma ranch, appearing relaxed but distant. For someone once known for his easy humor and charisma, there was a noticeable sadness in his eyes. According to close insiders, the real breaking point came from something deeper than distance. It was about identity. Blake wanted to start a quiet new chapter, living on his land, working on small music projects, and maybe starting a family of his own. Gwen, however, was rediscovering herself. After years of defining her image around love and heartbreak, she wanted to focus on personal growth, music, and her children. Their life goals simply no longer matched. Then came the whispers, claims that Gwen felt unfulfilled in the relationship. Sources revealed that she missed the thrill of performing, the artistic energy of her early career. While she adored Blake, she began feeling like she was losing the bold, fearless version of herself. On the other hand, Blake reportedly felt that Gwen was drifting away emotionally, prioritizing her career over the bond they once shared. They loved each other deeply, said one insider, but love doesn't fix a growing distance in dreams. Tabloids added fuel to the fire. Some claimed Gwen had met with former collaborators in secret to discuss her next solo project, something Blake supposedly wasn't thrilled about. Others suggested jealousy had entered the picture, not in the sense of infidelity, but professional envy. Gwen's return to the spotlight reminded Blake of a world he had left behind, one filled with constant attention and pressure. The two who once bonded over heartbreak now found themselves battling the very fame that brought them together. Even their friends began noticing the shift. They started living in separate rhythms, one close friend told People. She was on Los Angeles time, rehearsals, interviews, studio sessions. Blake was on Oklahoma time, mornings with coffee, feeding animals, quiet evenings. It became harder and harder to meet in the middle. By early 2025, it was no longer a secret that something had changed. During one interview, when asked about Blake, Gwen smiled politely but avoided eye contact. In another, Blake was asked if he missed The Voice, and he simply said, "Not really. I miss a few people, though." To the audience, it was a harmless answer. But to those who knew the couple, it said everything. The breaking point reportedly came during the holidays. Gwen wanted to spend Christmas in Los Angeles with her sons and family, while Blake insisted on celebrating quietly in Oklahoma. Neither wanted to compromise, and for the first time, they spent the holiday apart. Insiders claim it was that separation that made them realize their marriage had quietly run its course. Still, out of respect and love, both kept things private. They didn't lash out publicly, didn't play the blame game, and didn't let anger define the end. Instead, they let silence speak for them. And sometimes, silence is the loudest goodbye of all. After the quiet, heartbreaking end of Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton's love story, both stars found themselves standing at a crossroads, not as a couple, but as two individuals learning to rebuild their lives from the pieces of what once was. The public may have focused on the breakup, but for Gwen and Blake, the aftermath was about rediscovery, reflection, and finally accepting that sometimes love isn't lost. It simply changes form. For Blake, life after Gwen meant returning to his roots, literally. He poured himself into his ranch in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, where he found comfort in the simplicity of country living. Mornings spent fishing, evenings around the fire pit, and long drives through the fields became his therapy. Friends close to him say he's more grounded than ever, though there's a quiet melancholy beneath the surface. He misses her, one friend admitted, but he also knows they were on different paths. Blake has since shifted his focus toward producing new country artists, mentoring young talent much like he did on The Voice. He's also working on deeply personal music, songs about love, heartbreak, and acceptance. Though he rarely speaks about Gwen publicly, his lyrics hint at a man who has loved deeply and learned to let go gracefully. He once said in an interview, "You can't hold on to something just because you're afraid to lose it. Sometimes letting go is the only way to honor what you had." Gwen, meanwhile, has turned her pain into power. After the split, she channeled her emotions into her work, reviving her fashion line LAMB, returning to the recording studio and spending meaningful time with her 3 sons. The heartbreak reignited her creative spark. In interviews, she's spoken openly about rediscovering her independence and faith. "You forget who you are when you're always part of someone else's story," she told Harper's Bazaar. "Now I'm writing mine again." Her fans, who've followed her from No Doubt to solo stardom, rallied around her with love and support. Gwen, known for her resilience, used her signature blend of vulnerability and strength to turn heartbreak into art. Her upcoming album, rumored to explore themes of love, loss, and rebirth, has already been described as her most emotional work since The Sweet Escape. Despite the separation, there's no bitterness between the two. Those close to them say Gwen and Blake still share mutual respect and gratitude for what they had. They both entered each other's lives during dark times. Blake, reeling from his divorce from Miranda Lambert, and Gwen, recovering from the betrayal of her ex-husband, Gavin Rossdale. Together they healed. But as they grew stronger individually, they grew apart collectively. Their love story wasn't a failure. It was a chapter that ended naturally. Both have made peace with that. Gwen, ever the optimist, recently said, "I believe in love. I'll always believe in love." And Blake, ever the realist, added in a separate interview, "Life has a funny way of working out the way it's supposed to." In many ways, their story is a reflection of what real love looks like. Imperfect, human, and sometimes fleeting. It's not about forever. It's about transformation. They may no longer walk side by side, but the time they shared shaped who they are today. Now, Gwen Stefani shines brighter than ever, standing tall as a mother, artist, and woman who refuses to be defined by heartbreak. Blake Shelton remains grounded, living life on his own terms, surrounded by the peace of the open plains he loves so much.